Welcome to the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I'm your host, Tenya Eichenberg, and this is a space where transformation begins. Here, we dive deep into energy healing, self-care, and the power of mindset to help you break free from old patterns and design a life that feels aligned, vibrant, and authentically you. Each week, we explore the tools, techniques, and real-life experience that guide us toward lasting healing and growth. Because true metamorphosis isn't just about change. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. Now, let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome back to the Metamorphosis Project podcast. Today, I have Emily Cleghorn, and she is a trauma-informed coach. You help mamas through their trauma. Typically when we start businesses, we always start from a place of where we have been.
Absolutely.
And because we know what it took for us to heal. We know what we needed to heal. And we know that there's other people out there that want to heal in a way that we did. So get us started with, tell us about your story. Tell us about who you are first and foremost, who you are now, and then let's get into your story and really learn about what it took for you to, one, decide that you needed to heal and what steps you took to heal.
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited about our conversation. So as you said, my name is Emily Cleghorn. I am a trauma-informed trigger recovery coach for mamas. I am passionate about helping mamas to mend the past so that they can mama in peace. And I'm the mama of two beautiful babies. 17 and a half months apart. So those early years, we're starting to get out of it now, but those early years were quite busy,
Yeah.
quite chaotic. I am a vet educator. Before I had my kids, I was a classroom teacher, got 10 years of classroom experience, and I love teaching, but I love helping and coaching and helping mamas more. Um, I'm a farmer. We've got some chickens and ducks. We had some
Oh,
goats, but they've been rehomed now. But I love my chickies. I love their eggs. They
yeah.
taste so much better, fresh.
They do. I get eggs from a neighbor and I will buy like 3 to 4 dozen at a time. And her
Yeah,
husband's like, what does she need all those eggs for? I'm like, they last me a month. Like I don't just buy
yeah,
eggs for 1 week. Like
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that is who I am now. Um, But that is the person I am now is leaps and bounds different than the person I was a decade ago.
Mhm.
The person I was even a decade ago, not even a decade yet, um, was completely unaware of how much healing work she had to do.
Mhm.
And so my healing journey, my awakening, if you will,
Yeah.
uh, happened after my daughter was born in 2018,
Your oldest.
my oldest.
Okay.
Um, because up until that point, I had developed my coping strategies, healthy or not,
Right.
dysfunctional or not,
Right.
and they worked. As best as I knew, they worked. I was a functional adult. I had a career. I was married. Like I was, by society standards, functional.
Right.
And then once she was born, I can remember sitting on my couch, looking down at her as she slept, feeling this overwhelming fear wash over me thinking, first of all, oh my goodness, I've got to get out of here. This is not safe. I am doomed to repeat the past that
Mm-hmm.
I had experienced. While on the other hand, thinking, no, I can't do that because if I do that, I'm repeating the cycle and I don't want her to have that kind of pain.
Right. That's a huge awareness for us to have
Yeah.
right after birth, right?
Yeah.
Right after having our children. Um, is that we don't want to repeat what we've been through. We don't
Yeah.
want to pass that on.
Yeah.
And sometimes luckily it can be an unconscious decision as well. You
Mhm.
can marry someone different than who your parents are, and that kind of starts that cycle of waking you up, right?
Yeah.
Um so you came to the realization that there was a possibility that you could repeat those patterns. How did that make you feel?
It was not even something that I wanted to consider.
Yeah.
And my thought process at that point in time was that I was doomed. There was no choice in the matter. I was
Right.
doomed to repeat those. And that was not okay with me, not even a little bit, because I knew the experience that I had growing up, and I knew the hurts and the longings and the disappointments that I had faced, deep, deep disappointments. Um, so in my background, I've been parental abandonment, abuse of just about every kind,
Mm.
and I learned as a very little girl, 6 years old, that if I wanted to be protected, it was my responsibility.
Right.
And so thinking about my experience in life up to that point and looking at my beautiful, she looked just like baby Emily too, which was adorable, but also intensely triggering.
Yeah.
Um,
I
um,
I get that.
I knew that I needed to create something different for her, but I had no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
And my trauma brain in that time was telling me, if you tell other people how you're feeling, they're going to think you're awful.
Right. Right. Yeah, because we're not allowed to uh, in so many words throw our parents under the bus.
Yeah.
We're supposed to hold them on these pedestals because they brought us into this world. And that's a lot to carry.
Yeah. So for the first, oh, probably 2 months of my motherhood journey, I was dealing with this heaviness. I refer to it as the trauma freight train came barreling down the track and side railed me, demanded for all of the repressed emotions that I had worked really hard for
Hmm.
the first 20 some odd years of my life to push down, bury, and run away from. Um, and I hated being a mother. I loved my daughter, but I hated being a mother. And
Yeah.
it took me a long time to understand why that was. And after a lot of time and reflection, I understood that I hated being a mother because of what a mother represents to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we don't even use the term mother really in my household, my kids call me mama,
Mm-hmm.
um, or mommy or something like that. They don't even really we haven't gotten into the mom stage yet. So,
Right, right.
um, but they call me mama,
Yeah.
and working through all of that, the first step that I needed to take in order for me to heal was I sat down over Zoom with a therapist who was able to help me discern where my biological mom stopped, I started and stopped, and where my daughter started,
Mm-hmm.
which really helped me to understand that I have a choice. My mom made her choices best she could in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. And I have the ability to make different choices. I'm not stuck in her choices that
Mm-hmm.
she made in her unique situation. And my daughter's childhood is not a replica of mine.
Right.
But I had to sit down with someone to help me discern where those boundaries were because the lines were so fuzzy I couldn't see them.
Oh, I can so understand that. Just not knowing because the way you grew up was all you knew as far as
Yeah.
parenting skills,
Yeah.
and the way our parents parented, the skills they had only came from how they were raised. And it was just a generation, you can call it a generational curse
Yeah.
because it took until you came along to
To
say,
say,
"Oh, I'm going to break this curse
yeah.
and I'm going to figure out how to do it."
Yeah. So I had two choices really when it came down to it in those really quite dark days. I could listen to my fight or flight response, which was telling me to run as fast as I could away from there, or I could stay and figure it out. And I chose to stay and face the unknown and figure it out because the other alternative, although valid, was not something I could accept.
Hmm.
And so that really started my journey. And so for a long time, the first thing that I looked for was a community because I didn't have a really good example of what a mother or a mama was and
Hmm.
how to heal while also raising these little people who depend on you for everything.
Yeah.
And as I went along my journey, I learned that healing is nervous system recovery. Trauma
Hmm.
recovery is essentially healing your nervous system because the the trauma comes up in the nervous system, the adaptations that your nervous system had to make in order to survive because that's its one priority.
Right.
And so when my son came on the scene, and my dear sweet son, he's a screamer. And so my window of tolerance, the amount of stimuli that I could handle, was about the size of a peephole. And so dysregulation would happen pretty quick for
Yeah.
me. And so it's been a process of learning how to expand my window of tolerance so that I can remain calm
Hmm.
and understand how emotions show up for me, what they feel like in my body. Because when I was growing up, we didn't talk about things.
No.
We didn't feel our feelings.
Or you
As
probably couldn't even label your feelings,
Yeah.
right? Because you didn't know what you were feeling, and your mom, I don't know if your dad was in the picture, but your mom obviously did not know how to label her feelings, or else she'd be able to teach you.
Well, yeah, my mom wasn't even on the scene. I was raised primarily by my paternal grandparents.
Okay.
And so I grew up with their boomer mentality,
Ugh.
um,
Yeah.
writing the script.
Yeah. Yeah. So you and your mom essentially had the same raising to a degree.
No, these are my dad's parents.
Oh, your dad's parents. I'm sorry. You said paternal. My apologies.
Oh,
Paternal.
no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. It's okay. Um, so I can remember, I think I was like 9 years old. Um, and I went to my grandmother. She was cleaning something. I think it was spring break or March break. And she was cleaning something. And I went to her and I said, Nan, I don't want to be alive anymore. And
Oh.
she looked at me and she said, we don't talk that way. We don't talk that way. Now, I realized that she did not have ill intent.
Yeah. She just didn't know how to handle it.
She didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
But to my 9-year-old self, that meant we don't talk about the hard things. We
Right.
don't talk about the things that hurt.
Right.
So we stuff them. We push them down and we ignore them.
Yeah.
And so that has been something that I have had to unlearn.
You've had to reparent yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my experience and my passion is giving mamas the tools to navigate their triggers because motherhood is a mirror
Hmm.
and it's triggering as all get out.
Yeah.
But if you don't have like me, if you don't have the coping mechanisms, the healthy ways to manage and understand, and the awareness to
Hmm.
understand what's going on with your trigger, then you can't change it. You
Right.
can't heal it
Right.
because there's no awareness there. You can't identify it and say, oh, well, when Junior was throwing this fit and I got really upset and blew my top, it's it's because I was feeling unheard or
Hmm.
invalidated or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And until you can identify that root, it just festers.
Hmm. Yeah. It's like trying, you push all that stuff down. I always imagine like when we're pushing emotions down, it's like
Hmm.
taking a tamper and you're tampering those emotions down, and you bring out the tamper and you put it away, and then something else happens and you bring that tamper back out and you just keep tampering
Yeah.
until you can't tamper anymore because you filled up that hole,
Yeah.
and then it just explodes.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I've taken a keen interest in is understanding how the four main stress responses, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, impact parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding how they show up in our parenting or in our day to day, because it's not just when you're triggered that they show up, because it
Right.
becomes habitual.
Oh, yeah.
and it just shows up. You become unconscious to it because it's just part of how you are.
Yep.
But it's not a character flaw, it's your body trying to survive.
Absolutely. I can remember, and this literally just popped into my head. I can remember when my oldest would start to, because it took me 6 months to be okay being a mom.
Mhm,
I was a mom at 19 years old, and I was not, she was definitely a surprise. She was not planned. But it took me 6 months to become a mom after she was born. But I can remember sitting on the couch and her crying in the bedroom and me just sitting there going, maybe she'll go back to sleep. Maybe she'll just go back to sleep.
yeah,
That was one of my responses to how I had grown up.
mhm,
And now I know being, working with the subconscious, I know that there was definitely times, I'm sure, when I was laying in my crib and my mom did not come when I needed her.
mhm,
I didn't realize that I was repeating things until my kids were already becoming adults.
mhm,
And so luckily I've been able to, and for those of you listening, that even if you realize that it's such a late stage in your child's life and development, you can still change how you parent your adult children. So don't
yep.
think that things are lost.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not a too bad so sad kind of situation.
exactly, exactly. And I know that there were things that I did that I realized that I had grown up with, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Oh, thumbs up. Yep. Zoom says it's right. um, and so there were lots of things that I did, and as I'm sure that you found,
Mhm,
there were things that your grandparents did that you noticed the pattern of
mhm,
your behavior in them, your kids' behavior in you, and you were like, I'm not going to do that. And you were able to stop it, right from the get-go. But I'm sure there were things where you were like, oh crap, what did I just do? And
yeah, and
that's
in
where the
those
awareness comes from, right? Is realizing that what you're doing is a pattern that you don't want to repeat.
yeah, and when those moments happen, the power is in the repair.
Right. I love that.
So, one of the things that I will often say on my podcast or to my clients is your triggers aren't your fault, but they're your responsibility.
Absolutely.
So, when a trigger happens, because we're human and they're going to happen,
Mhm.
um, going to your kids and saying, you know what, mommy yelled at you and I probably scared you and I'm really sorry.
Right.
And that apology does a few things. It models to your kid that how to apologize and how to
Mhm.
take accountability for mistakes when they happen. It shows them that that you care and they matter. I mean, think about when you were a little kid and your parent yelled at you and scared you,
Mhm.
or they made a mistake and they never apologized.
Mhm.
Think about the power of them owning up to their mistake and apologizing to you like you're
Yeah.
a human being that matters. Think about that power, the power
Yeah.
that, like,
It's huge.
it's huge.
It's
And
absolutely.
it it removes the shame from making mistakes and being human.
Mhm. Yep.
It's huge.
Yeah. And I will have to say that sometimes I think that there is a time limit on the apology. I mean,
Absolutely.
they can come and apologize a month later. They can come
Mhm.
apologize a year later. But by that time, while the apology can be accepted and it's appreciated, it's much harder to recover from
Mhm.
because you've already gone months or years of
Mhm.
battling what happened. So
Yeah.
it's important to acknowledge and apologize quickly.
Yeah.
Within like I would say with like an hour. Like give yourself time to calm down and recoup and then go and apologize, but don't let it take weeks, don't let it take months.
Yeah.
Definitely don't let it take years. Because at that point when you're apologizing for you, you're not apologizing for your behavior. You're apologizing because you've been uh pushed in a sense to apologize. It's
Yeah.
how I feel. Um, so kudos to you to figuring out that as that yes, we're going to have triggers. We're
Mhm.
human. We're going to, and those triggers are going to cause us to respond and have behaviors that are going to be scary to our children.
Mhm.
But yes, acknowledging that we had that behavior and getting down to their level and saying, I'm so sorry I scared you.
Yeah.
And kids are resilient in that sense. They will look right at you and go, "It's okay, mama."
Mhm.
They understand. They may not understand the complexity in which you felt it, but they
Mhm.
understand. I'm getting goosebumps. They understand that you're sorry.
Yeah.
And then you work on changing your behavior so then it doesn't become emotional abuse,
Yeah.
right? Because that can happen too. The key there is you have to do things to help change your behavior so that you're not blowing up all the time and then turning around and apologizing. And that
Yeah.
just there's such a fine line with all of
Mhm.
this. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm
And
so glad that you're here to help people through and see those patterns and those triggers and how to combat them, I guess.
yeah, and it's not an overnight process.
Right.
So it takes it takes a long time of focusing and reflecting and working on identifying what your triggers are and how they show up and
Right.
gaining that awareness, building that awareness muscle so that, and then starting to implement tools from your trigger toolbox
Mhm.
that can help you to respond, move from reacting to responding in a different way.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a process
Absolutely.
because, like, when you think about it, your triggers didn't become triggers overnight. It took a while for that
Mhm.
particular thing to become a trigger.
Yep.
And so for it to not be a trigger is going to take time as well.
Yeah. And in some cases, it's gonna take longer. It's like when
Yeah.
we're trying to lose weight, the weight doesn't
Mhm.
come on overnight, but it does come on quicker than it takes to lose it.
Absolutely.
Right? You might gain 20 pounds in 2 months, but it's gonna take you a year to get it off.
Mhm.
Right? It's gonna take time. And you
Yeah.
can't put, as I always say, you can't put human time on it. You can't say,
No.
okay, in 6 months, I'm gonna be able um to listen to my baby cry and not get all tense and nervous and agitated. It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way. You have to
No.
you
No,
you
it took
have
me
to
years.
yeah, yeah. And as long as you are working
It's a process.
towards bettering yourself,
Mhm.
your kids are going to feel, and this is where the energy work comes in. Your kids are going to feel that energy of you trying, that energy of you
Mhm.
shifting. And that is what the kids are really reacting to, is the
Mhm.
energy behind your trigger,
Yeah.
right? So if you are working on reducing, give me an example of a trigger that a mother might have after giving birth.
So for me, one of my biggest triggers was the crying of my baby. Um, just the the length of time because babies cry, and if you've got a
Mhm.
baby who's got colic, they cry
Ugh,
more.
they do.
Um,
And it's such a
and
high-pitched cry.
it's a high-pitched cry. And so a story from not that long ago, actually, a couple years ago. So I mentioned that my son is a screamer.
Mhm.
A few years ago, and he screams when he hits his frustration level, when something doesn't go his way, um, just because. Anyway, it was a morning I was home by myself with the kids. My husband was at work, and it was just one of those mornings where situation after situation after situation was setting my son off, and he was just screaming, 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 screaming. And me being the mama in this situation, I'm trying to help him find his calm again.
Right.
And I was a little ways in on my journey, so I could handle, I don't know, 30 minutes or so of him screaming.
Right. Right.
Well, he was screaming probably 45 minutes to an hour, and it was just constant. And nothing I was doing was helping him to find his calm.
Mhm.
And I got to the point where my nervous system was like, nope, I can't handle this anymore.
Yeah.
And on that particular day, I ended up in trying to release the energy that was built up in my body. I I thought lightly, I kicked my laundry room wall. It wasn't so light, or the drywall was really weak because there was a toe-shaped hole in my laundry room wall. And
Oh no.
immediately, I was like, "Ah, crap. That was not the right way to handle that." I felt
Right.
better. The
Right.
energy went released,
Right. Right.
but I don't want my son, who was standing over in the other corner screaming his head off, to kick walls when he gets upset.
Right.
So I knew that I had to repair. And so I texted my husband, I apologized to him, apologized to my kids, and then I sat down and I was like, okay, what was it that caused such a big reaction?
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to help my son, and it was not being met. It it was only being met with more screams.
Your need of helping was not being met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My inner child felt unheard
Right.
and now my son was just screaming. It was not personal towards me. He was
Nope.
not attacking me,
Nope.
but my inner child felt unheard.
Yeah.
And it caused my nervous system to react in that anger, with
Mhm.
that anger. It
Yeah.
had nothing to do with my son. Really, his screaming was the straw that broke the camel's back, but
Right.
my reaction had nothing to do with him.
Yeah. Absolutely not. And he didn't
But
set
he
out to
doesn't know
get a
that.
reaction either. No. No. He doesn't.
And so that's where the repair is vitally important
Mm-hmm.
because when you have a big reaction like that from a trigger, your reaction is not because of your child.
Right. That's why they call it a trigger, because it's triggering
Yeah.
something. It's triggering
It's
something
triggering
else.
something else,
Yes. Yeah.
usually from your inner child.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But it's the process of becoming aware of what's actually going on. Because if you don't have the awareness, that situation looks very different.
Mm-hmm.
Kids screaming, mom kicked the wall, it all hell broke loose.
Yeah. Yeah. You explain that so well, because we go through being in this healing space, right?
Yeah.
We hear a lot about triggers,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody explains it all a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that you've just explained it was just like so many people are going to understand it because of how you explained it. Because you will often hear people say, "Oh, you triggered me."
Yeah.
Right? You trigger, even people who say you triggered me don't always understand where their triggers are coming from.
Yeah. They put the blame on the other person.
Right. Right.
And it's not about the other person.
Right. You triggered me. I feel attacked by you.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah. And you're showing people that you have to stop. And if that means that you have to set your child down in the crib,
Mm-hmm.
shut the door and walk away, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
They're going to cry, but they're not going to hurt themselves crying. They're not. It's a horrible feeling to have to do that. To have to put your child down and not be able to comfort them, not be able to help them find their calm, especially when
But
they
they're
can't use their words. Right? They can't
exactly.
tell you
But
what's wrong.
their calm starts with your calm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you right, because they're feeding off of your energy.
Yeah.
So the more calm you are, the more calm they are.
Yeah.
And that's how you that's how you change those generational dynamics.
Yeah. One thing that just popped into my head was when I was doing my trauma informed certification, they spoke about trauma that happens in the womb.
Mhm.
And so if you are a trauma survivor with a lot of unhealed, unprocessed trauma, and your body is living in survival mode,
Mhm.
and your cortisol levels are elevated, your baby can be born with elevated cortisol levels.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And so their body, their nervous system, their undeveloped nervous system is already fighting
To find their
extra
calm. Yeah.
extra stress.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to not put pregnant women in situations where they're going to
Mhm.
get stressed out and they're not going to be able to find their own calm.
Yeah,
People think
it's
that
huge.
being pregnant is just it's just a part of life. Like you'll get through it, but they don't realize just what the impact is,
Yeah,
not just on their body, but on the baby that they're carrying and
yeah.
how that impacts it. Well, not only that, we can go back even further, right?
Mhm,
Are right the eggs that
mhm,
that we have. If you're going through a stressful situation before you conceive your children,
mhm,
and that because you know what, those eggs are in our ovaries from the day that we're born. They're all there.
Mhm.
And so they're getting all of that. We could go on and on, right?
I mean, if we're going that way, let's think about your mom's eggs
Right.
that were in your grandmother.
Yep. Yeah. So
So
that's how
that's
generational,
how it goes
right.
through lineages.
Right. That's how we inherit. I got goosebumps again. That's how we inherit the trauma energies, the despair anchors, the
Yeah.
beliefs that you know we're not enough. It's
Mhm.
not always it's not always ours. Now we may build upon those going through
Mhm.
life, but if we're born with those, like when I was healing from my anxiety and depression, most of the energies, the trapped emotions that were coming up were from my dad's dad that I
Wow.
never even met. And my mom's
Yeah.
bipolar, so I thought a lot of it was going to be coming from her. Oh no, it was coming from my dad's dad who died at like 47 from cirrhosis of the liver because he was an alcoholic. Most of
But
it was coming from
we
him.
know that addiction is your
Right,
nervous system's way of finding equilibrium because it's just
right,
frazzled.
right. Yeah. It's self-medication,
Yeah.
right? But my dad passed that on to me because it was passed on to him. My dad's an extremely quiet person. Does not talk about his, it's where I learned how to stuff things down because it was easier to stuff
Mhm.
than it was to have to deal with everything else that was going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those epigenetics are not just your DNA. It's
No.
your belief systems, it's these trapped emotions that you're carrying around, it's the deregulation of your nervous system from the moment that your parent was conceived.
Yep.
And it could even go further back than that, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
it goes all the way back to the beginning of time. And someone once asked me, like, how do we know we're carrying all of this stuff around? Our bodies are only so big. Well,
Mm,
who's to say how small these energies are that are having such a huge impact?
yeah. It's profound.
It's just like, but in this day and age, we've had the opportunity to get information that other people don't seem to have access to. Even if you showed it to
Yeah.
them, their brains may not be able to comprehend what it is that they need to pull from it to heal,
Mhm.
right? We were, and I don't like always using this term, but we were awake enough
Yeah.
to be able to see something's got to change, something's got to
Yeah.
give.
We've got a huge opportunity.
Right. And, thank you so much for um, taking that step in your own healing journey so that you can share this information with other mamas because
Yeah.
that is the that is the and I'm not saying that men don't feel this, that dads don't feel this kind of stuff, but we as moms, we are the caregivers.
Mhm.
99% of the time in families, we are the caregivers. And if we can't figure out how to move past our own mental unwellness, our
Yeah.
own um our own traumas, we're just gonna pass them on until the next generation can figure it out, which is what happened with us, right? Our
Yeah.
parents couldn't figure it out, and so it was passed on to us to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I talk about how to overcome this a lot in my new book, Breaking Free. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I'm this is my soapbox.
Take it,
And
take it, be on your
and
soapbox.
yeah, I'm
And
it's
that's
not
available
about
on Amazon, right?
Yes, it will be available on Amazon. But it's not about being a perfect parent. I don't
Right.
think one exists, but
Well,
it's about being self-aware enough to and willing to take responsibility
yeah,
and do better.
yeah, absolutely. And teaching our children those, pardon me, those coping mechanisms that we learn.
Yeah.
It's passing on that knowledge to other people. And that's why, we have a podcast. That's why you have a podcast. It's why you wrote a book. It's why you help other women through their trials and tribulations of being moms who are healing from trauma.
Yeah.
So what are a couple tidbits? And you also have a program that you wanted to mention as well, correct?
Yeah. So, um, Breaking Free, my book, goes hand in hand, kind of leads you into my program that's also available as group coaching. It's called Beyond the Trigger, and it's 4 modules of my Mended Mama method that walks you through how to untrigger
Mm-hmm.
and gives you the coping skills and the tools and resources that you need to develop the self-awareness and the self-compassion and boundaries and all of those things that you need in your healing journey. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, they go the book and the course go hand in hand. So yeah.
Good. Awesome. So what are two or three nuggets that you would leave the listeners with if they are listening and going, one, I'm not sure if I know what my triggers are.
Mhm.
How can they move forward from that point? They're listening and going, I don't know. I think I might have some, but I'm not quite sure how to figure it out. What would you tell them?
Become become the observer. Get curious.
Mm, absolutely.
And instead of judging yourself when a tough mama moment comes up, because
Hmm.
it's gonna
It's
happen.
gonna happen, and it's gonna happen for the rest of your life.
Yes.
As long as you have children, mine are 28 and my twins are 25, and I still have moments
Yeah.
where things come up and I'm just like, "Ooh, where did that come from?"
Yeah. So just get curious, and
Yeah.
if you can, journal it, because that journal then becomes a a set a group of data.
Yeah.
It's a data set
Yep.
that can inform your next steps.
Yeah. Yeah, don't be afraid to write things down.
Yeah, no
It
judgment here. Get
Absolutely not.
curious.
Yeah, be curious. Yeah, be a cat.
Yeah,
You
be a
know,
cat.
be a cat. Be curious. Step out a little bit of your comfort zone and write things down. It doesn't have to be in a beautiful, pretty journal, although if that
No.
helps, great. But don't wait to get a pretty
Yeah,
journal to start writing things down. Write it down in your phone, in your notes. I
yeah,
made myself a journal email. It's just my name.journal at whatever.com. And you can send yourself emails to that journal email and nobody can touch it. Nobody can see it. If that is a worry that someone's going to read
yeah,
what you're writing, send yourself an email. There's
yeah.
lots of ways to do it.
Or
But
password protect the app on your phone.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do what you need to do. Find what you need to find to start healing because you're worth it.
Absolutely. And find a community,
Yeah.
because community is one of the biggest keys to actually doing the healing work. Because when you go at it alone, which your trauma will try and tell you that you're the only one on the planet feeling this way,
Yeah.
which is a lie.
Right.
Um,
Right. Turns out everybody feels this way.
yeah, yeah.
Just nobody wants
But
to
find
admit
a
to it.
community of people who know what you're dealing with,
Yeah.
who have been there, who aren't willing to uh, commiserate with you, but are willing to like support you when
Mhm.
you hold you up, when you can't hold yourself up. Because days like that happen,
Yeah.
periods like that happen in trauma recovery. Tough things come up,
Yep.
but you
Yeah.
need the support because, at the beginning of my journey, I was like, man, it would be so much easier just to not do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you need this, and also ask for the support of those around you.
Yeah.
Don't assume that they're going to know what you need. They cannot read your mind. I was a master, and I'm sure you were as well,
Yeah.
master I'm okays, right?
Oh,
We were
yeah, I'm
able
fine.
to, we could shift our outside persona to be, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm happy. I'm laughing. I mean, that's, you know, all of these celebrities that have taken their own lives were severely depressed, and a lot of them were comedians and musicians, and they knew and could figure out how to hide how they were feeling.
Yeah.
So you cannot expect
Master
people.
charade, master
Yeah,
charade players.
absolutely. You cannot expect people to know what you need. You have to say, I need a hug.
Yeah.
I need someone to talk to. I need someone to hear me. I'm working at asking people this when they bring things up. Do you want to be hugged? Do you want to be heard? Or do you want to be helped? And
Oh,
that's
wow.
something
It's
that
powerful.
other people can say what they need. Hey, I need to be
Mhm.
hugged. I just need to be heard. Can you help me? But we have to learn as humans to use our voice, and I don't want to say this in a way that is off-putting, but we need to command what we want.
Yeah.
We need to command what we need to feel better, because we are deserving of having happy and joyous and free-flowing lives. And
Yeah.
if somebody else can't help us get there by asking
Mhm.
for help, we need to go find someone else to help us.
Yeah.
But that's where it starts, is ask for help. And Emily can definitely help you if you are having trouble defining what your triggers are, knowing if you're having triggers, and if you are questioning that, you already know. Yeah, you already know. You're just kind of trying to talk yourself out of having it, because you've got that deep buried belief that we don't talk about this.
Hmm.
So where can they find you to reach out for help?
So you can find me on my website, which is mama, MAMA, hood, aftertrauma.ca. You can always tune into the podcast, Mamahood After Trauma.
Beautiful. And they can find you on all socials as well.
Instagram and Facebook.
Perfect. Emily, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you sharing your story, your insight, and your knowledge.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I hope today's episode brought you inspiration, joy, and a spark of empowerment. Remember, transformation is an incredible journey, and every single step you take towards self-care and healing brings you closer to the life you truly desire. If this episode uplifted you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us to share this journey of hope, resilience, and joy with many listeners. For more tips, support, and inspiration, come and visit us at designyourexistence.com. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep shining brightly. You are absolutely worth every bit of love and care you give to yourself. Take care, stay joyful, and be well.